So, good afternoon. The August 15th, 2023 meeting of the Charter Authorizing Panel is called to order.
She's muted, it's gonna be volume.
Yeah.
All of us with new devices today.
Yeah.
We're not having luck. Sounds, there we go.
All right, let's start over. All right, so good afternoon. The August 15th, 2023 meeting of.
It's still doing it even though.
You'll have to come all the way out and you go back in.
So you don't have anybody. So you have to now at all.
Speak into this.
Yeah, just
Test, test. I think we're good now.
no, that's not the one. Well, I wouldn't know, but I was on the first page of their agenda. Oh, right.
Third time's the charm, right? All right, so good afternoon. The August 15th, 2023 meeting of the Charter Authorizing Panel is called to order. Getting some feedback? Okay. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Department of Education and ask that you all please silence your electronic devices. The goal is to facilitate a fair and responsible hearing, so therefore I ask that each person speaking please state your name and title for the record. I ask that you continue to speak clearly into the microphone throughout your presentation for the benefit of the panel, this audience, and the viewing audience. The meeting is being live streamed and recorded, and a transcript of the meeting will be posted on the DESE website. So we do have a consent agenda item today before you. It's actually the minutes from last month's meeting. If there are no questions, then I'll accept a motion to pass the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion passes. All right, I'll call Ms. Wagner.
Good afternoon, panel members. It's good to see you again. Chastity Wagner with ADE Legal. So I'm just going to give you guys our general hearing procedures. So the chair will swear in everybody who is testifying. You can swear everybody in at once. The charter will then get 20 minutes to present in their entirety. The chair can grant more time if you so choose. We have not received any opposition, so after they present their 20 minutes, I don't believe we have any public comments either. Is that right, Ms. Simmons? So we haven't received any public comments, so after they present for their time, we can then begin our deliberations and discussions.
All right, thank you. All right, Ms. Simmons.
Dory Summons, Charter Office. AMS Schools of Arkansas has submitted an application to establish an open enrollment charter school beginning in the school year of 24-25 academic school year. The charter will follow a traditional and college prep educational model, and we do have a team of speakers here from AMS.
All right, thank you. All those who plan to testify, would you stand and raise your right hand? Do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. I think he's pulling it up.
Dr. Sutherland, members of the authorizing panel. My name is Eric Greenberg. I'm the CEO for the Academies of Math and Science. On behalf of my team with us today, I want to thank you for the time that we have to introduce you to the Academies of Math and Science and chat a little bit about our program and our intent in coming to the great state of Arkansas and serve the communities in Little Rock. Our agenda today is going to spend a couple moments talking about the history, the vision, and impact of the Academies of Math and Science. Go in and talk about our program here in Arkansas and how we plan to serve the communities in Little Rock, and then open to any Q&A that you all might have. I want to quickly introduce the team that we have with us today. Mr. Nate Lowry, who is our Chief Academic Officer, Ms. Kate Bracker, who will be our Executive Director for AMS Arkansas, Mr. Stephen Hikes, who serves as our Chief Financial and Growth Officer, Ms. Brandy Adams, who is our Chief Operating Officer, Mr. Robert Biggs, who is our Chief Information Officer, Mr. Zach Larison, who is our Chief of Staff, and joining us today is Mr. Terry Warren, who serves as the Academies of Math and Science nonprofit attorney. Real quick, want to walk you through the history of the Academies of Math and Science. The founder, Ms. Tatiana Chaica, immigrated to the United States in Tucson, Arizona back in 2000, working multiple jobs, trying to make ends meet. Her desire was to enroll her son in a high-quality school that served, that taught a lot of sciences and math. Being a math teacher from her native country, in addition to that, she didn't have enough money to teach him guitar, get him enrolled in arts, and so her desire was to build a school that focused on sciences, on math, but also allowed all students to receive music instruction, have all access to arts, etc. So in 2002, she started the Academies of Math and Science with 30 kids, and had a successful start of the school year, and realized very quickly that it was very expensive to operate a program offering all those things free of charge to those families in need. Serendipitously, through a visit by Miss Kathy Lund from the Walton Foundation, visited the Academies of Math and Science, bought into the mission that Ms. Chaica had for the school, and unfortunately Ms. Chaica had to communicate that she could no longer keep the school running because of the costs. Ms. Lund told her, do not close the school, keep it going. Today, because of that, the Academy of Math and Science has served over 30,000 students and their families since 2002. On behalf of our 900 staff members who passionately serve a little over 8,500 students across 9 campuses in Phoenix and Tucson, our mission is very clear. It is through a well-rounded education to transform today's scholars into tomorrow's global visionaries. We are very passionate and very driven by our mission to serve high FRL communities. This is one of the main reasons why we are very excited and very passionate about serving the communities in Little Rock. We seek expansion in areas that have a lot of need, who we feel are underserved, whose families and communities deserve a high level of education. We are extremely proud, as we've gone through these past 6 to 8 months of getting to know various community members in Arkansas, getting to know the education system, but most importantly, getting to know the families and the need in the communities. We're extremely excited and very proud to come to the state of Arkansas and serve these families. Sorry, I keep hitting the wrong one. Our vision is very simple and clear. It's to provide the best education and the best environment. We are driven by 3 specific values, and that's do whatever it takes, act with honor, and be vulnerable, candid, and kind. We promote these amongst all of our staff members, who then promote them across all of our student base, as we believe these 3 values can help lead to consistent growth and improvement across all of our schools. We have 3 very specific objectives, and that is to operate A-rated schools, having a data-driven approach to close academic gaps. We want to be fully enrolled and fully staffed. It is important for schools to be healthy schools, but also to have fully staffed schools to provide all the amenities and services to our students. And then our focus is growth and development, both of our students, of the learners, of our families with our community-based approach, as well as all of our staff members that focus on learning, growth, and development. I'd like to introduce Mr. Nate Lauer, who's going to walk through a few of our results over the past couple years.
Thanks, Eric. Good afternoon, everyone. As Eric said, my name is Nate Lowry, and I am proud to serve as AMS's Chief Academic Officer. Wanted to just talk, I'll walk you through this slide that has lots of data. I know we're all educators, so we love looking at data. I'm actually going to start at the bottom. So you'll see there, these are results from the AASA, which is the Arizona Academic Standards Assessment. And at the bottom, it tells you the number of raw points that campuses need to earn an A, B, C, etc. Looking up at the top of the chart, you'll see those are our 9 campuses. We have 7 schools in Phoenix, 2 in Tucson. And in the second column, you'll see how our schools performed 2 years ago, so 21-22. And right next to that, you'll see the number of points that we were awarded for last year's academic data. So the state just released the points that we were able to earn based on our student achievement results. And I'm really proud just to show you that in our first year, many of us, this is our first year on this team, we saw increases at every single one of our campuses for an average gain of just over 8 percentage points. You'll see the last year's letter grade, the 21-22, we had 2 A campuses, a couple C campuses, many B campuses. The final column there is what our projected letter grade from the state of Arizona is. They have not released those yet, but if they keep the cut scores the same, we anticipate having all A and B campuses. So really, really proud to say that we are the highest performing, largest charter school in the state, serving over 75% free and reduced lunch for our kiddos. And when I think about some of the ingredients in our secret sauce, I think the most important thing we did is what Eric talked about. We obsess over data at the network level, at the campus level, even in the classroom. We really look at data to drive our instruction. We place a premium on our people. So this past year, we created a talent development department to make sure that every single person is successful in their job, not after 1 year or 2 years, but the moment that they step into that classroom or step onto that campus. And then finally, we made sure that all of our curriculum products are aligned to state standards and not the other way around, which is what we plan to do here in Arkansas. And then this last slide there just shows you the overall percent passing. This is all students, all tests across our schools. And again, just really proud to share that we saw increases across every single one of them. We're not there yet. We know the best education and the best environment means every single one of our kids is passing every one of their exams, but really, really grateful and proud of the team for the improvement that we were able to show in just 1 year. And with that, I would like to turn it over to Ms. Kate Bracker.
Hi everyone, Kate Brocker, Executive Director for AMS Arkansas. So given our commitment to building exemplary schools in low-income neighborhoods, we are proposing that our first school in Arkansas be in Southwest Little Rock, so we can be uniquely positioned to serve the John Barrow, Windermere, Oak Forest, and Terrytown neighborhoods specifically. Based on our research, we know that between 75 and 90% of students living in these communities currently are eligible for free and reduced price lunch. We also know that within our 10-minute drive time boundary, an estimated 69% of students currently attend a D or F rated school. The first AMS school in Arkansas in Little Rock would be able to serve up to 600 kindergarten through 8th grade students, and we would hope to be able to serve many more in the years to come. This brings me to talk a little bit about the AMS Little Rock model. Everything that we do is centered around generating and sustaining transformational outcomes for our students, ensuring that they have the tools and the resources that they need to build and design and ultimately achieve their wildest dreams. Our team of experienced educators know that adult actions and mindsets often create the enabling conditions and systems for this kind of transformational change to be possible. And so we have championed an impact model that you see on this slide that is really focused on building and developing empowered students who have effective educators every single year, who are then sustained and supported by an invested community of partners and families. To drill down one layer below that, we have 5 pillars on this slide that we believe are essential to our model. First and foremost, creating a student-centered culture. For us, what that means is fostering a culture of high expectations, driven by core values, creating a warm, inviting environment so that our kids feel an authentic sense of belonging every single morning that they walk through our doors. We also believe in designing instructional routines that place an emphasis on deliberate practice a high ratio of student voice and discussion, constantly communicated rationale for why they are learning and what they are learning, as well as collaborative projects that focus on real-world application. Our emphasis on inquiry and visible learning is achieved through applying a lens of scientific investigation across every single content area through essential questions in our units, coupled with the practice of constantly providing our students immediate feedback that will support the revision of their thinking and their work products to mastery. Another golden thread throughout all of our contents is really honing in on the skill of elegantly using evidence to substantiate claims, which we know is really going to prepare them for the real world beyond. We are deeply committed also to using high quality, evidence-based curriculum and materials to support alignment and rigor in student learning and teacher internalization. And we are ready to learn absolutely everything that we can about the Arkansas State standards over the coming year to make sure that we can execute them at the highest level, especially given the Atlas assessments that are coming this spring. Fourth, at AMS, our educators receive weekly observations and immediate actionable feedback, always based in data and aligned to our standards for leader effectiveness and teacher effectiveness, so that we're constantly measuring and monitoring progress against that high standard that we have developed. Last but not least, we truly view ourselves as community schools, prioritizing organization, proactive communication, and authentic opportunities to collaborate inside of our school community. We base our offerings directly on community needs. One example of this being high quality before and after school care that really is integrated into our program and also can serve that need that families have. Woven together, these components allow us to create new pathways of opportunities for our students and families. And we're so excited to bring this mission to life in Arkansas. And with that, I will turn it over to Stephen Hikes.
So in the back of your handouts, you will see a juxtaposition of what the current site looks like and what we hope it can become. For those of you who are not familiar with this part of town, this will be a state-of-the-art facility to replace the facility that has been there since the 70s. This is a transformation for that community and investing in that community, an educational facility that they have not seen before and that will motivate them to come to school and be a part of this AMS community. We have a purchase agreement in place for the former David O. Dodd Elementary School that's on sale by the Little Rock School District, pending closing, pending a charter. There are site improvements to this, including a new ground-up facility that will include an indoor sports field with a performance stage, 7 brand new classrooms, a full-length outdoor soccer field, and a brand new place facility for K through 3. Our break-even student enrollment for this model is 300 students. Previously, this campus served 253 students in the K through 5 space. We will be serving the K through 8 space. And the building is to be owned by a nonprofit support organization that will be funded through a public bond issuance, which will have no obligation to the school or the state in the event that the charter is not renewed or the school is not able to continue at some point in the future. On this next slide, just showing the history of AMS Arizona, our historical and projected financials, which I think is important to showcase a couple of items. One, that we are good stewards of public funds, that we understand that a school that is, does not have excellent financials is not sustainable. You can see the days cash on hand that has continued to build over time, as well as the cash that's continued to build over time. But this also shows the support that is behind AMS Arkansas in the short term, should we not meet those 300 student projections. In conclusion, these are just some of the thousands of students whose lives have been affected and impacted by the education they received in AMS Arizona. They serve as the foundation, along with the 20+ years we've been doing educational work, to allow us to look outside the state of Arizona to serve additional communities. We have assembled a team of highly accomplished educators and subject matter experts who are passionate about education and ready to support Kate as she starts a new chapter in the AMS story. That first page is Little Rock. So we are excited today about the opportunity to come alongside the state of Arkansas and the Department of Education to enhance the educational opportunities for families in Little Rock and across the state of Arkansas. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Wagner?
All right, with that conclusion, I think we will move straight into the legal review, if that is good with all of you. All right, perfect. So if you will pull that legal review up, Trip, do you want to come up here? Okay. So you will notice, I'll go through these one by one. So on the first one, acquisitions of commodities, I didn't have any legal concerns. They fully effectuated that. Do you have any questions about that one?
Any questions?
Okay. Alternative learning environment, they have fully effectuated that waiver, and I had no concerns about that. It's gonna go really fast.
Okay.
For board of directors, everything was good. I had no concerns about that. Was there anything to add to board of directors? We're good?
No.
Okay.
Any questions? No. Okay.
Okay. For class size and teaching load, they fully effectuated for the standard and the rules, and plan to compensate their teachers if they go over, is my understanding. Correct? Perfect. Any questions?
So I have a question about, looking at the lower level grades, what support will be provided? I think it said 1 to, it's like 1 to 100, they would have a paraprofessional?
I will let the charter answer that, or the
Okay.
applicant answer
Yeah.
that.
So, as far as the support on the lower grade levels, we tend to run a 1-to-1 ratio for kinder,
Uh-huh.
depending on the class sizes, and then the ratio goes up from there. So the model will depend on the number of students fully enrolled, but yes, to start, we have a 1-to-100, and it would go down from there. But most of that support going to kinder and the lower grade levels.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Number 5 is classified employee minimum salary. I had no legal concerns. Number 6 is flag display. I also had no legal concerns. 7, gifted and talented, no legal concerns.
Any questions about any of those?
All right, number 8, instructional materials, no legal concerns. Number 9 was leased academic facilities, no legal concerns. Number 10 is library media specialist, no legal concerns. 11, personnel policies, duty-free lunch period, no legal concerns. Number 12 is daily planning period, also no legal concerns. And number 13, non-instructional duties, no legal concerns. Any questions on any of those? Okay. 14 through 22 are also all personnel policies, and I had no legal concerns about any of them. With the caveat being on the website posting, the charter is aware that it will have to have a salary schedule. All right, number 23 is principal, and I had no legal concerns. 24 is superintendent, and again, no legal concerns. 25 is school counselor, and it's just that one standard, no legal concerns.
So on that one, is that the ratio?
Yes.
So,
Sorry.
go ahead.
It's still.
So looking at the responses that is provided, or rationale provided for the waiver, I would like a little bit more explanation from the applicant on the ratio that they have identified. And And I know you kept looking, but I was trying to flip through my notes and you guys are going really fast. So some of my other questions may come up during the question section, but that's one that I know that I would like a little bit more explanation on at this point.
Okay.
So for the counseling program specifically, the way that we defended the ratio that you see there is we really just leveraged current research on effectiveness to be able to support that, as well as the experience that this team has operating with a similar ratio in Arizona. Given the counseling program specifically, though, did want to make sure that we noted that we are not waiving the certification requirement for our counselors. We're also not waiving the comprehensive counseling program itself, so we fully intend to execute on every single aspect of that program, making sure that the counselor that we have on site in person every day devotes the majority of their time to direct student services. And then, of course, as our school grows, if we realize that that ratio is not effective or is not working, we are willing to hire a second counselor as well. I will turn it over to Amy. Of course, of course.
Good afternoon, Trip Walter, Staff Attorney, Arkansas Public School Resource Center. I just wanted to add a couple points as to what was not requested as a waiver. So you'll notice that there was no counselor licensure waiver asked for, so there will be a fully licensed counselor or counselors in place. And also the full comprehensive school counseling plan will be administered by the school.
So regarding that same topic, were you able to read the feedback, our internal feedback from our counseling office at the Division of Elementary and Secondary Education that cited specific quotes from the articles that you provided that speak to the detriment of increased ratios?
Yes, we did. We also, given the research that we were able to use and the discourse that we were able to engage in just responding to that feedback, we definitely kind of assert and acknowledge that a lower ratio is always going to be more effective for student services. However, we have every confidence in our ability to execute this comprehensive counseling program at the ratio cited, and are willing to adjust and pivot as needed just to prioritize student needs.
All right, any other questions on that one?
I feel comfortable
Okay.
we just move forward with the rest of the waivers and
Okay.
I'll come back to my question.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next one up is teacher licensure, and I have no legal concerns. And then the last one is transportation, and I have no legal concerns with that one either. They have stated that they will provide, of course, if an IEP requires transportation, it will be provided. So I have no legal concerns about any of that.
Okay,
So I will turn it over to the charter.
all right, thank you very much. Do we have some questions? Anybody on the panel?
Just go down the
I have further questions about the class size. I feel like you addressed maybe the teaching load part, but as far as the class size in the early grades, could you speak more to that? Because I have concerns with kindergarten classes that have 30 or more students.
Yes, so as far as class size, we did ask for a maximum of 30, which is actually a departure from our Arizona model, which is 34 to 36 students, K through 8 consistently. So in terms of that waiver, we are feeling like we know it is a higher number than the state of Arkansas has on the books and what you all are used to, but we also know that we're coming down from the size that we're used to and not changing the program there. So we are asking for 30. There may be less than that depending on who enrolls, but we think with the paraprofessional support as well as the professional development that we give teachers to meet that class size, we feel that our academic results that we've presented today were achieved using that same class size, and we feel like with similar deficits educationally, so we feel that that is important to us to be able to serve as many community people in the community as possible, and we also feel that limiting that class size to a lower number that's currently the standard prohibits as many folks in the community from joining the school as possible.
Dr. Moore, did you have any other questions?
I will just mention, with it, math and science being in the title, I didn't see a lot of explicit attention to how math and science would be taught differently, more aggressively than in a regular school.
Yeah, I can absolutely respond to that. So with the model that we have, components of mathematics and science are woven throughout, thinking about our lens of scientific investigation and focus on, evidence substantiating claims. All of those components we weave into every single content that we have, regardless of the subject matter. And so it really is the spirit of ensuring that our students are prepared for, the next generation of jobs, and making sure that in addition to comprehensively offering English and social studies and arts and all of the things that are critically important to the development of students, that we really emphasize micro electives that allow for coding opportunities or more of those technical skills that we know our students are going to need. So that's driven kind of the focus that we've embedded there. But I will turn it over to Nate for just a little bit of extra.
Yeah, thank you for that question. So in addition to having computer science, a lot of our after-school clubs are geared towards the STEM sort of field. So think engineering, think mathematics. But you'll also see in your resources, you have kind of a day in the life of a scholar. And we added increased instructional time to both math and reading. One, because we know that teachers don't have time a lot of times to teach both the fundamental skills that kids need as well as the conceptual understanding. But then in addition to that, every day kids have time in what we call GAME, which stands for Goals Are My Everything. And that is where the kids are going to the classes where they specifically need additional help or additional enrichment for kids who are already at or above grade level. And that time typically will focus on reading for kids who are way behind in reading, and then math and science for kids who are getting that sort of enrichment piece. Appreciate the question, though.
Thank you.
I have a question. Other than the public meeting, what tools or approaches have you used to assess the potential population or the interest in this AMS?
Sure, I'll start from my perspective, and then we'll also bring in any team members who were involved much earlier than I was. For my own role, being the executive director of AMS Arkansas, as soon as I had the honor of stepping into this role, I personally moved myself and my family to Little Rock. I've been here for about 2 months so far, but my goal in doing that, and to also address your question, is to really start building strong community partnerships and relationships within the Little Rock community to ensure that, upon hopeful successful authorization, we have some networks in place to be able to leverage and be able to use. And a big part of that has been entrenching myself into this community and speaking with prospective families and community members just on what their hopes and dreams are for their kids, and for what they want in their ideal school, just to better understand that. So from my perspective, step one was really getting here to Little Rock and ensuring that I was devoting the appropriate time and space to getting to know the community. I will turn it over to anyone from our team who wants to speak a little bit about what came before.
Yeah, I would agree with everything Kate said, and then just want to really share our point of view is that our academic model really should be the same everywhere. Obviously, we'll adapt our standards, but the quadratic formula in Arkansas is the same quadratic formula in Arizona, but the look and feel of a school really should reflect the different needs of the community, and that's something we want to partner with community leaders and parents and guardians on, because the culture should reflect the area that we want to serve. All of our 9 schools now, many of them look different. Our kids are all going in the same direction. We want them to be college and or career ready, but in terms of like the culture and how we want the school to feel, that's something we're definitely engaging with stakeholders as we move through the process. Anybody wants to add anything?
The last thing I would just add there, Kate talked about it, the genesis of why coming to Arkansas or Little Rock. Prior to the pandemic, we knew that there was educational needs across the nation that we felt that we could serve, because our mission is different than a lot of charter organizations, where we specifically focus on those high FRL populations, and we specifically focus on those areas where there is not great school choice. So from that, we started, when the pandemic happened, as everybody did, kind of repivoted and looked internally to see how we make sure we still served our students in Arizona. As we've come out of that pandemic, we repositioned our look across the national landscape. We looked at over 20 different states and communities to understand the challenges they were faced. And we kept coming back to Arkansas, and specifically Little Rock, in that we felt what was the need. We showed it on the slide that over close to 70% of students in this high FRL area were in DNF rated schools. They did not have school choice. That choice was forced upon them to attend these DNF rated schools. So we knew that there's demand for an A-rated education. In addition to that, as we met with folks from Arkansas and specifically Little Rock, we just saw the passion that was there to not be the status quo. Coming from Arizona, we should be looking up at Arkansas in some ways. You all are in the middle of the pack educationally, but you're not where you wanted to be. And we saw an opportunity to come alongside and partner with that. We've met no resistance to that. As Kate, everyone we've met in this community, from folks we've partnered with to design a school, to build the school, to market the school, anyone we talk to is excited about this opportunity for the specific communities and areas we're serving, and that we're not just coming in to just be another school to water down a product. We're here to change that educational landscape in Little Rock, and thus far we've seen nothing but support to do that.
Trip Walter, APSRC. I just wanted to kind of piggyback a little on that, on the community piece, and emphasize the importance of community. This is something that there's been no pushback on. You notice the Little Rock School District is not here today in opposition, as far as I know, has not submitted anything. The AMS, as they mentioned, is in the process of purchasing the building from Little Rock School District, being able to provide a continuity of educational services in that community. So I think those are additional points to speak as to how community-minded and community-oriented, and how much they want to be here and serve that portion of the Little Rock area with their educational model.
No pushback on, you notice the Little Rock School District is not here today in opposition, as far as I know.
So circling back around to my previous question about the school counseling ratio. So I do appreciate that there was not a request to waive the certification for that. But thinking about the population that you have described in your application that you are intending to serve, and typically those students will have greater need versus less. So I would like a little bit more explanation on the rationale for the higher ratio. And unless I'm not reading it correctly, I've been trying to wrap my mind around it, and I'm having a bit of a struggle why we feel as if that 600 to 1 would be reasonable for this population of students.
So as Kate alluded to as well, we know that the research we provided does state in there that 600, we feel that we can still adequately serve that population. That is also based on our experience in Arizona. But we also recognize that if we were to come down to that lower ratio, which is required with our 600 student cap, we'd be well below that 450. So it is our intention as we grow, as we get more economies and more efficient, that we're nearing in that 450 ratio, which we think we agree with, as Kate mentioned, the lower ratio over time is better. But for the outset of the school, we do have a ratio of 1 to 600 in Arizona. We do see success with that, with the other supports we put in place. And we do think that that 1 to 450 would serve as a barrier to our students as a whole at the outset of launching this school. And I know Nate has some more color on this.
And also, as you're transitioning to the other presenter, could you provide a little bit more detail on what that comprehensive plan looks like? How is it implemented in your schools now? Are there other staff members that are involved in this process? If I could have a little bit more detail there, that would be helpful also.
For sure, and then Kate might have some things to add. So what you'll notice in the day of a life of is every day our kids participate in morning meeting. There's a curriculum that we use called Character Strong. It's research-based. We think of it as sort of the tier 1 intervention for kids who otherwise wouldn't have the social skills to deal with some of the things that you're mentioning. Obviously that doesn't work for everyone, but it is something that is, every kid gets that every single day. We chose that because it is research-based for Title I schools, and it's quite frankly an easier lift on teachers. It doesn't revolve on an extra sort of planning thing because we don't want to put that on folks. In terms of the comprehensive support plan for students, we follow the MTSS process just like we do for special education. And what our counselors ultimately try to do is move kids off of their caseload. They want to reduce the amount of time that they're seeing that counselor if they're able to. It doesn't always happen, but if they're able to, because they're giving those kids the additional skills and coping mechanisms to really help them become better versions of themselves despite what might be going on outside of home. And then the only other thing I would name is that we obviously partner with local agencies as we need to bring in additional help and additional support as we partner with families.
Okay. So that seems to address the personal counseling part. So how are we supporting their career counseling needs?
So I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
That seems to address the personal counseling components that are necessary, but how are we addressing their career counseling needs? So as we're thinking about the student with their personal needs, how they come to us, those addressing that. But on the other side of it, the school counselor is also responsible for providing that support as it relates to career exploration, career readiness. And I noticed there's some mention of that in the application, but that's not really fleshed out as well to me to be able to understand how that's going to operate, again, with the ratio being as high as it is.
Kate, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, and you're correct that in our application there was just brief reference to this, but we really see this as an integrated component of our student success plans, and that being we're passionate about data tracking and data-driven portfolios that our students keep. You heard a little bit about our Goals Are My Everything time, where students are receiving meaningful extension, intervention that is unique to them, and they're engaging in academic practice unique to them. A key component of that is really cultivating and creating a portfolio from the moment that a student comes to us, where they are the owners of their data and their progress. A key component of this is thinking about interest inventories at different levels as appropriate on a grade level band, thinking about what is appropriate to talk about career exploration in the K-5 space versus what kind of survey or inventories that our students can take in 8th grade to really hone in on what are my strengths as a student and how could this translate into what I might pursue in a high school of my choice or what I might pursue in a career of my choice. So those student success plans begin with our students from the moment that they come with us, and those portfolios travel with them every single year. And our game time is a really important aspect of when those come to life and when our students interact with them. And on a regular basis throughout the year, we also invite parents to parent-teacher conferences and student exhibition nights where career exploration is directly woven into those portfolios.
And just more. So, also looking at your application, I noticed that you do reference like coding or robotics or some things that you plan to offer. And so as we look at other ways to support students that are, as we're thinking about career technical education, there are some expectations that grade 5 through 8 that students will have access, and so one, I didn't see a waiver against any of that, so I'm anticipating that you're going to follow the expectation of what is needing to be in place. But what is that going to look like for students outside of the courses, but again, also that support preparing, as you mentioned, to go into high school curriculum and being able to have access to those CTE courses.
Yes, and first and foremost, we absolutely will follow every single requirement in what you just mentioned, 100%. For our students who are ready for the academic challenge within that game time, that is an opportunity for the micro electives that we mentioned in our application to focus on coding, robotics, Adobe Photoshop, whatever. It really is aligned to student interests and led by the teachers. That's one aspect of it, as well as just after-school extracurriculars that can also focus on these different interests aligned to career and technology, computer science and technology careers in the future. We also, though, plan to bring in community members and community partners who can be speakers and role models for our students, and can also leverage different programs that are embedded within the Little Rock community to give them that exposure through the partnerships. That could happen through extracurricular times or different exhibitions throughout the year.
Well, just to add on to Dr. Wright McMurray's questions about the counseling piece. So although Arkansas's ratio is 450 to 1, that's the maximum. It's not necessarily saying that's even best when we say that. The
Of course.
American School Counseling Association recommends 250 to 1, and Arizona actually, it's my understanding, has the what's quoted as the worst ratio in the United States. It's the highest ratio for counseling. So when it's mentioned that if you had 2 counselors, it would be 300 to 1 potentially, and how that's so much lower, that's, the 450 is the max. It's not saying that we recommend 450. So would there be any consideration, or is it just not within your model to support having a lower ratio?
I'll first turn it over to Stephen, and then I'll answer from the programmatic components to follow up.
Yeah, I would say, again, it is not currently part of our model. You're absolutely correct that Arizona has historically not done a good job of supporting students on the counseling side. That's something that we recently were awarded a national grant to add additional counselors to our schools because the state was not providing that support and funding. And again, none of us are here disputing that a lower ratio is best for students at the end of the day. But we do know that the resources for our programs and the resources for students as a whole does not at this time allow us to go beyond that or go lower than that 600 ratio, which is why we asked for that. Again, we do believe that we've had the academic success and support of our students with that ratio, but with a movement towards lower, that being an area where we would eventually look to lower. So I do understand that that is the highest bar in Arkansas, that 450. But again, with our experience and what we've seen in Arizona, we do not, and all the other supports that Nate and Kate have already talked about, we've seen that our students are able to be successful at that 1 to 600 ratio. For us, that being our high bar.
Thank you.
Did you have a question, Mr. Baldwin?
Yeah. Let me ask a few questions and maybe approach this from a different way. So I'm looking at the sheet that shows that you guys have A and B schools, but 2 C schools, and I was intrigued by your handout that shows that you expect one of those C schools to move up to be an A school next year. And so I really want to ask you, why do you believe that's going to happen, and what specific things are you doing to achieve that? And then as you answer that question, think through the population of students in Southwest Little Rock who are currently DNF students, and explain how the movement at Peoria could mirror the movement in Southwest, if you think it would. And I'd be interested in knowing how many years do you think it will take you to improve the grades for the Southwest students, because the schools that they are currently attending are not good. So help us understand that process.
Sure. I'll start, and then I'll turn it over to Kate. So I think, quite frankly, high expectations and not allowing anyone to make excuses for the challenges that our kids are facing, while also understanding and having empathy was a huge reason why we were able to see these results. And something we didn't include in here, but I'm also really proud of, is that we retained a significantly higher number of our students at every one of our campuses this year than we did before. So what you're seeing on these academic results, they're not coming at the expense of taking out kids who can't perform or kids who don't know how to do the things that we need them to do. We simply believe that they can do it, and then we teach them that. We also had, in full transparency, a leadership change at that campus. We now have an executive principal there, someone who is mentoring 2 resident principals so that we can see these kinds of gains in all of our schools and not just one. And obviously, when you have a really strong, effective leader who believes that all kids are capable of achieving no matter what, we just need to get them there, you really can move mountains. And that's exactly what we saw this past year at Peoria and what we absolutely believe we can do here in Little Rock. It took us 1 year at Peoria. We can do it in 1 year here as well.
You, and I'm gonna ask a few financial questions, so maybe you guys can change places. I'll hit you and then you can. So I see that you're estimating 486 students in the first year, and I'm wondering if you have ever missed that. You know, that's a best guess. I know you're gonna work hard towards that. It goes back to Ms. Newton's question. But are you confident with that, and do you have a good track record of that? And then what happens if you don't hit it? And I appreciate the break-even number of 300 students, so that was another question. But how comfortable are you, because that's a lot of kids in 1 year, so tell us how you're gonna do that.
Yes, and I apologize, it's probably sounding like a refrain. We know that Arkansas is different than Arizona. But in my almost 8 years of experience with this organization, we've been launching 1,000+ schools from the jump in Arizona for over 5 years. That goes to the passion of which we believe the need is there. So we know that there are a lot of charter schools that start small, K through 1, K through 2, K through 3, kind of grow, as Nate talked about, retain those students and grow them. We don't think that that necessarily serves all of the community members that need served. So when you ask, that number seems large. To us, that number seems small, and we will feel like we were unsuccessful if we don't hit that 486. We've developed marketing systems and metrics. We talk about data a lot. There's data on how you enroll students, which families, how they engage in the process, how likely are they to attend, where should we be at different parts in different months to hit those numbers. So we obsess over data in many different ways. So to us, again, that 486 number is a low bar for us, but is set there to make sure that we all know what we're working towards.
So you've never missed?
Have we ever missed in the past? So we have not missed our initial projections. We have had, Nate mentioned Peoria. That is a turnaround campus for us, if you will, that in the first year we hit the enrollment mark, but because we didn't have the correct leadership there, we did lose those students, we did lose those families, and we hit in the second year a low water mark, and we learned a lot from that experience. So we're not coming into this as a group that's always been successful. We've had our failures. Peoria had been a struggle for us in the past. And so what did we learn? Something that I wanted to add to what Nate said is we never gave up on that campus. We looked for the right leader. We looked to that community and said, we need to serve them better, and we never gave up. We knew the potential was there. And as I showed in the presentation, there is a strong financial strength backing this network that can fill those temporary gaps in the event we didn't even meet the 300. But we think with the team we have assembled, with the facility we're providing to this community, and with the passion with which we want to serve this community, we believe undoubtedly we will get there.
So my last question is on the facility.
Yes, sir.
So you are close to buying the facility from the school district, which I think is a good sign. The school district is selling that to you. Will that building be remodeled and complete before 24?
That's always the million-dollar question, multi-million-dollar question as I've done these projects time and time again. That is one thing we have never missed. We have never missed a school start date. Okay. Now, a lot of sleepless nights. I've missed sleep, but we haven't missed an opening. So we are confident with the partners that were recommended to us, with a passion. We met with them very early on in this process, And the edict to them was, we cannot miss a start date. This is not a corporate office. This is a school that families are counting on to be open when we say, and even open sooner than that, because these are staff, teachers that thrive on routine and want to be in there early. They don't want to be there the same day as the students. So, yes, you've put even more pressure on me now with this question, but we will be open.
Well,
to
I
start
would
the
say that especially in low-income communities, that if you invest in them, they will invest in you because they're not used to investments in them. And so the building itself, I think, will help you with your numbers when they see that. If it looks like what you have in the picture, that's a lot better than the David O'Dowd building looks now.
Yes, sir. And I
so-
will add to that question, we do have a contingency plan as always in place. The ground up would be the one area where we think we might need more time should we need it. But through the remodeling of the existing facility, Kate and I have already discussed what that looks like with the 486 students. So we have a contingency plan in place, but again, it's not our intention nor.
So finally, to conclude, the bond issuance, explain that in a little bit more detail.
Yes, sir.
About who does that. And I noticed in your budget that your interest carry on that's $564,000 in year one, so that's a substantial carry. So maybe just explain that to us.
Yes. So we have worked in the past with RBC Capital. John Snyder leads the national charter group there. They have never had a default in his 30 years leading that. So when we partner with them, they know us and we know them, and they know to look at what we're doing and does it work. We're not building a school that is not supported by the students. That process looks like we go out to the national investor markets, your big capital houses, BlackRock, things that invest in 401ks, et cetera. Through our track record, we are a BB+ rated school network in Arizona. We're super proud of that. We started as non-rated, and over those 5 years have worked up to BB+. For a network of our size, that's pretty tremendous work we've done. And so that debt is issued. It is 100% on this nonprofit support organization to make those payments. And again, in the event of default or the school closing, those folks that invested in those bonds would be the ones that would miss out.
How many schools do you have now that are funded by bonds?
All 9 of our campuses are currently publicly funded. In Arizona, we do not have the ability, I believe it's similar here in Arkansas, we do not have the ability to raise bonds through the taxpayers, so our bonds are backed 100% by our state equalization.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
And Mr. Davis, I haven't forgotten about you yet, but I think Ms. Saraceni has some questions she wants to ask.
Yes, I would like for you to explain, I know you're asking for a licensure waiver, but in the state of Arkansas, with that waiver, you still have to meet the requirements of Arkansas qualified teacher. Can you explain to me how you are going to reach and meet those requirements?
Yes, and so we absolutely, and we made sure to emphasize this in our application as well, we will absolutely ensure that they meet those standards to be highly qualified in the state of Arkansas. And even with all of the teaching candidates that will be hiring, the ideal scenario in state is that they do have the licensure and they have the required certifications. In absence of that, I, as an executive director and principal, really look at experience. I look at licensure by reciprocity, as well as the content areas that they have their degrees in, so that it aligns with their teaching assignments. Have an incredibly high bar for the teachers that go in front of our kids. We just also recognize that given our launch year, given kind of coming into a new state, and given the state of teaching right now on a national scale, that was the rationale for asking for that. But in practice, we would really be pursuing either looking for candidates that have that licensure and certification, or throughout their first year with us, really encouraging that they pursue that.
And I'm gonna bring this to your attention too. Our science of reading, you have to have all teachers by 2023 have to be proficient or on an intensive support
Yes, we are aware of that. Yeah, and coming from Texas, deeply entrenched in the science of teaching reading, we'll be the first assessor with that, but we will ensure that we meet compliance for every single one of our staff members with that.
Well, I hope you reach out to my office because it's
Absolutely.
indicator effectiveness of licensure, and we have people on staff that can help.
Absolutely, we really look forward to partnering on that.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, Mr. Davis, do you have any questions?
I do. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes, fantastic. First of all, thank you to my charter panel members. They have asked most of the questions that I have written down, but I do have a couple of questions. First, I want to go ahead and support, I think, what is coming through loud and clear when it comes to the idea of lowering the counselor-student ratio. Just as you've kind of been able to identify some additional support in Arizona, I would hope that that same sort of vigor of identification of support in order to lower that ratio is something that happens in Arkansas as well. So that's more of a statement, not a question. Couple of my questions, let's stay on the teacher leadership bit. I'm a firm believer that that person in front of the students are the most important piece. Considering that you've now done this, you've replicated the model a number of times in Arizona, can you give me an understanding of how you look for, identify, and help teachers make a decision that your institution is the place that you'd like to be? I mean, it's one thing to say, you know, we're looking for experienced teachers who demonstrate it, right? But there's a fight for talent. So help me understand, why would a teacher select your institution versus another institution? And what have you learned as you continue to expand out the state of Arkansas in regards to how teachers think about where they might want to be? And I think these are all lessons for us to think about as we do this work across the state and glean some of the insights. So I'm asking from an understanding perspective, try to glean some of the insights and how you've been able to be successful in doing this.
Yeah, I can start and then turn it over to Kate. That was one of the things I spoke about, us creating a talent development team. When we say best education and best environment, we let our teachers know that we mean that for them too. We want them to be continually growing, and we want to develop them. We tell them from the very beginning, we are going to pour into you, even from the moment the interview happens. When they do a sample lesson and they get feedback and they're asked to do it again, that could be really scary for some folks, but a lot of people actually walk away really enjoying that experience. They understand that like that feedback helps them become a better teacher. And to your point, we're not getting a ton of experienced teachers. Unfortunately, we're taking some of our, people who are straight out of college and helping turn them into really great teachers. So that's one of the things that we tell them, is we really are going to pour into you, whether you start off as a para or a teacher. We want your career to really grow at AMS. And then we also find folks who are really passionate about the kids that we serve. We look to find people who live in the communities that we serve to teach, because we know that they are invested in it and care about the kids who come through their door every single day.
The only thing I will add to what Nate just shared is, beyond mindset and a true passion for working with kids, which has to be the number one when you're looking for teaching candidates, as well as the culture of feedback and really ensuring that, we are prioritizing our teachers' development above all else. As a former principal and about to be the founding principal, something that is incredibly important to me about leadership is that leaders are in classrooms 90% of the time, if not more, right there hand in hand with our teachers, not only coaching and supporting them, but also having their backs and jumping in to support instruction in the moment, if that's what that means, and really being right there in the everyday fabric of leading a school. And so knowing what teachers need right now, they are hungry for that support. I would also say, the adoption of high quality instructional materials, so that the focus really becomes on teacher internalization of high quality material and taking away the burden of teachers having to source materials or go to pay teachers or other places just to find a lesson plan. Having that codified having those codified instructional materials in front of them and really focusing on the rehearsal of excellent lessons takes an immense burden away from teachers, but also really works in service to students.
Thank you. Dr. Wright McMurray, did you have any further questions?
Well, there are a couple more questions I have.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I apologize.
That's okay. That's not a problem
He
at
knows I
all.
typically have a
do
ton,
you-
so.
What is the number and/or percentage of students that self-select out of your institutions on an annual or yearly basis? Are we talking, out of how many students do you need to replenish students who have self-selected out on some of your campuses? What does that look like?
I get a turn. My name is Brandy Adams Bressler, and I'm the Chief Operations Officer for AMS. So what we've found in our Arizona campuses is that depending on the campus, obviously, we see anywhere from a 30% up to more like a 20% turnover rate. We do find that is often, we track the reasons students leave. Arizona is a very transient area, both with people moving out of the state and just transferring to different neighborhoods within the Phoenix area and back and forth to Tucson. So a high number of the students that we see that are leaving are actually transferring from one of our campuses to another. So that gives us a lot of comfort that although they are experiencing some transition in their home lives, that they're choosing to come to another AMS campus. So that's a kind of little feather in our cap. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks for that. One last question from me, and I think you've kind of gone into a little bit, and you've obviously provided some information. Can you bring to life to me this idea of, the AMS? How do I know I'm engaging with a student who's at AMS? Like, what is distinctive about the interactions with student at AMS? Or another way to put this, when I step on your campus, what am I going to see at AMS that I might not see anywhere else?
I think you're going to see kids that are learning really rigorous material and are joyful about learning that material. So we want our kids to be excited about going to science, right? Like recess should not be the only thing that's fun on school. We want kids, you're going to hear kids say something like, I haven't gotten this yet, but I'm working on it and I'm going to get it. And they are in love with the rigor that they're experiencing in their classrooms.
Fantastic. No other questions for me. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Dr. Wright McMurray?
Just for my clarification, looking back, like I said, I was trying to get back through all my notes. As it relates to LEARNS, is there an expectation that your salaries will comply with the LEARNS Act? I was just trying to get a sense from your description in the application if that was the case.
Yes, so I did budget for forward-looking, knowing that the minimum salary right now under the LEARNS Act, I believe, is $50,000. I believe our average was 53, knowing that we're not opening a school for another year. The thing that in that budget that I think the state is still not clear on is what happens in year 2. So right now, the state is ingested additional dollars to support those districts and charters that have moved from 36,000 to 50,000 average. But what happens for a new charter that comes in and the state equalization currently doesn't reflect a new minimum of $50,000. So that is something that we're hopeful that the state will address, which would actually add more revenue to our budget and give us an even larger cushion for our students. But yes, we understand fully that that 50,000 plus minimum for bringing in teachers.
Okay. And not to, oh, did you want to? Okay. And not to totally belabor the topic, but it is the expectation that your counseling model will meet the 90-10 requirement for time spent on counseling related and then non-counseling related activities.
That is our intention, yes.
Just one clarifying question. So your teachers in resident, with their teacher of record, will they also receive the 50,000, or will it stay at the 35 to 38?
So the TIR program that we currently institute in Arizona most likely will not work. In Arkansas, Arizona has different standards that unfortunately do not even require a college degree to be in the classroom. So we, again, in the spirit of professional development and knowing the educational space, we've developed a TIR program to help staff get from non-college degree to college degree while getting that experience in an AMS campus. So we don't think that program will fully materialize here in Arkansas at this point. But we do think it's important to note, again, the spirit for which we make sure that professional development is important for all our staff. And to your point, a teacher of record earns the teacher of record salary. But the TIR in Arizona is lower, but because we don't have those similar standards.
Thank you. Any other questions from panel members?
I wonder, I'd like to hear what your ongoing evaluation process is with teachers in the classroom. I've heard someone mention that every applicant says they love children, but what would you expect? It's almost, and compare it to maybe in thinking about baking a cake, and midway through it's not rising, there's no leveling in it, leveling. So how do you know whether you have what you're actually looking for, and what's your process for saying this isn't working? It's not working for you, it's not working for us and the students.
Yeah, so we have a very robust staff development cycle where teachers sit down with their manager at the beginning of the year. In fact, those are happening this week. They go over their goals, they self-rate on our teacher effectiveness guide, which is going to be something that we do in Arizona will align to the standards here in Arkansas, of course. But every teacher also gets a weekly coaching conversation with their manager where they're looking at either student work and assessing where kids are doing well, where they're not doing well. They might be watching a videotape of themselves teaching. They might go see an exemplar teacher. But they get that development. If they need even more intensive, there are things that Kate alluded to. We do dress rehearsals in the morning. We'll pull teachers off of duty. We'll say, you're going to role play your lesson with me for the day because we need to make sure that what you're putting in front of kids is actually the right thing. And so we try to individualize it as much as we can, and we tier them, right? So same way that we tier scholars in the special education program, we tier our teachers. But that being said, sometimes things slip through, obviously. And what we really look for when we're hiring folks is behaviors, right? We look for, how do you behave in the interview? Do you actually want to take feedback well? Do you say things that make me believe you really do care about all of our kids, right? And then you behave that way. Obviously, when it's not working, we follow standard, personnel, human resources practices, putting folks on improvement plans if that's what they need, giving folks corrective actions. We don't like to do that. We like to believe the same way that all kids can learn. I believe if someone signed up to work for us, that they really do have a passion for the work and they want to be successful. It's our job to help get them there. But obviously, in the event that we need to, we are moving very quickly, and we use data really to drive all of that. We do weekly rounds, instructional rounds, where we're rating teachers and aligning and norming on those practices and really looking at, okay, where do we have teachers who they're not moving, they're not hitting the tripwires that we would have expected to, and then what is the individualized plan for that teacher to get them back on track.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Mine's not as much of a question as a statement. I just wanted to point out in your application, I really appreciated your comprehensive professional development, and I think that is so critical, the job-embedded learning and coaching model, and your identification of ADE as a great resource for providing professional development. They really do have strong content experts that can support teachers, and I just suggest that you do follow through with that, as well as the PD provided through APSRC.
Anyone else?
I would just like to, I really looked at your residency model, and we have a registered apprenticeship now, so I think you need to look into that. I think that model would quite marry well, and so that's why I was asking so many questions about that. But anyway, just reading it, very thorough, so I can't wait to see what the impact is on Arkansas students.
So if there are no further questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the charter application as presented. And, you know, the one thing I do believe strongly is that you all make an impact in Southwest Little Rock. And I'm happy to see that opportunity.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No? All right, the motion passes. All right, so we'll go to our voting sheets.
Mr. Sutherland?
Yes.
Mr. Sutherland?
Yes.
Yes, I'm gonna place in a vote of abstaining from the vote, please.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I think they're still working.
I'll do that afterwards.
I was just thinking to do.
I've got a new keyboard.
Dr. Wright McMurray.
Okay, I voted for the application. AMS School has a model that has the potential to improve outcomes for Arkansas students. I encourage the continued evaluation of their counselor-to-student ratio with assistance from ADE's counseling team. I also encourage them to further explore and expand their middle school CTE course offerings and assistance from DCTE.
Ms. Saraceni?
I support the AMS open enrollment in Little Rock beginning in the 24-25 school year. AMS will provide a much needed focus on math and science while utilizing HQIM in this area of Little Rock. I cannot wait to see the impact on students in Central Arkansas.
Mr. Baldwin?
Yes, I was really impressed by your strong history of success and believe that your model is different than what we have seen in the past, and I trust it will be as successful here as it was in Arizona, or is in Arizona. So I voted for the application as presented.
Ms. Newton?
I voted for the AMS charter's approval based on the fact that they have developed a comprehensive plan to move students forward using tested approaches. And also they plan to engage community, families, and students. For me, is also a plus in their strong history.
Dr. Moore?
So I voted for, and as a former math educator, I'm very excited about the opportunity for math and science. But I said that AMS proposes to provide a needed learning environment for students currently not served by effective schools as measured by state accountability data. Please do explore options to lower the ratio of counselors to students.
And
As
Mr.
if you didn't hear that a few times today.
And Mr. Davis, did you want to speak to your vote?
Let me just say I'm excited about the opportunity for families and students, and I'll leave it at that.
All right, thank you very much. All right, congratulations.
Yeah, good job.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, meeting's adjourned.